I'm Gerald Bentley. This is Wrestling with Sales. It's an all Missouri episode today. I'm in Kansas City, and we're joined by your dad's favorite wrestler, Dan the Dad, coming into the Wrestling with Sales ring. Dan, thanks a lot for joining us. I've been wanting to talk to you since we started the show because you're one of the more unique characters, I guess you could say, in pro wrestling. I've never seen somebody get into a wrestling ring with a mug of hot coffee, not a travel cup, old school style, with a mug, and actually wrestle a match. That's that's an amazing skill. What made you think that was a good idea and you wanted to give it a shot?
Well, I don't know if it's really a good idea because the coffee tends to spill all over the ring as much as I try to avoid that. But no, it's just a fun little. I just like to do things that are different than what you'd see in someone else do on any wrestling show. So that tends to be my thing that I can bring a mug of coffee to the ring. It's been fun to kind of figure out different things that I can do while holding the coffee. I mean, you start to learn how to wrestle just with one hand or whatever, and being able to learn how to move around the ring without spilling it, jump up and down. It was actually pretty tough when I first started it,
I
but
imagine
uh,
so.
I think I've got it down a little bit better now. But actually, the biggest thing that kind of led me to uh, kind of leaning more into that was a trip to Japan, where the mug of coffee never was that much of a gimmick for me. It was just sort of kind of a prop that I'd bring to the ring or whatever, just the Dan the Dad, I'm drinking my coffee. But in Japan, they like really responded to wrestling with the mug more than anything else that I was doing. So once I went there and came back, I said, I got to lean really into this coffee thing because people seem to really like it, and it's kind of something that I guess even internationally, if you don't understand some of the dad tropes or like American dad tropes that I'm throwing out there, then at least you can be impressed by a guy running around not spilling his coffee. So it works, I guess. But a lot of it kind of came from some international opportunities, and that's kind of what those fans got excited for. So it's become a big part of my character and my performance now.
Well, and you've had a couple of several tours in Japan now with DDT Pro, and have you ever been in with Pro Wrestling Noah?
No, just a little with GAN Pro as well. That's DDT's kind of little brother promotion. So
Okay.
got some connections with them. I'm hoping to go back later this year. So we'll see when what that comes together. But I'll be back eventually. I know it was such a good experience, and made a lot of great connections. The fans were awesome, and I think the biggest thing was like learning things about their culture and about what the fans would respond to that I now want to take and go back, and having kind of had the experience of what they're into. So yeah, I'm hopefully but before the end of the year seems to be like it'll happen.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, everyone I talk to, be it in the Central States region, in Las Vegas and Phoenix and the Northeast, the destination where everybody wants to go to is Japan.
Mhm.
How did taking a tour of Japan come about?
Again, just making connections with some, my friend Shota. He works with DDT and GAN Pro, so he was doing a tour of the U.S. for a few months and got to know him. And he was able to watch. He actually saw a match between myself and Cody Lane and was impressed enough, and knew we were good guys and dependable, and we're looking for an opportunity. So he invited us both over to, and he kind of took care of everything for us for that first trip. So it's really just about making connections, about especially when you see folks traveling internationally to the states. It's good to get to know those people, become friends with them, and they can help you out and bring you back over to their country. And then it can become, I'm trying to form a partnership just to be able to bring more of the GAN Pro roster over to the United States, because that's a group that doesn't really get a lot of international exposure just yet, but they're very talented. Um,
Yeah.
and people love DDT over here. The DDT's been around for a couple of decades now, but GamePro is kind of the up and coming version of kind of what the DDT was. And DDT is very much a lot more corporate now. They're a lot bigger than they used to be. But in that they kind of have their own set roster. You don't see a lot of too many foreigners going to the getting brought in for their shows as much as they used to, and that's just because they're very locked in with this great group of this great roster that they use. But Can Pros was something that they spun up just to allow more opportunities for some international folks. So definitely trying to establish more of a connection with them, and repay the favor to bring them back over to the States whenever we can, and if we can kind of build a pipeline to Japan like there used to be. I mean, I think pre-COVID, it was a lot. I wouldn't say easy to get to Japan, but there was more avenues that you could go through. And ever since things have been kind of rebuilt the past couple of years, that's something that there's still a bridge there. There's still ways to get over, but the opportunities are few and far between. So hopefully that we can kind of help expand that a bit more, not only for us to go there, but for the Japanese wrestlers to come to the States as well.
Sure, and just to build those relationships and get those territories all working together, because it is such a huge part of just building that community. And you can go, and I think, are those matches available on Wrestle Universe if somebody wants to go and take a deep dive in?
There's a whole GAN Pro tab on Wrestle Universe, which is honestly a great platform for English speaking users to use. They have it very well organized, and it's a great subscription to be able to watch Noah, DDT, GAN Pro, TJPW as well on there, and also got some other content on there too. And I think the subscription, once you do the conversion of what it costs, it's about like $6 American, which is actually really
and right now it's actually free. If you go to Wrestle Universe and sign up, you get a free 1-week trial that runs through the end of this month. So you can definitely go over there and you can take a deep dive. You can check out Dan the Dad Wrestling in Japan. Now, I wanted to ask, how did the whole character, I guess, the persona of Dan the Dad start? Because did you start as a pro wrestler as Dan the Dad, or did you start as a wrestler and then it kind of segged in?
Yeah, I mean, I just started as plain old wrestler Danny Adams, and which went well. I spent let's probably about 5 or 6 years just cutting my teeth, just being what I like to call a regular boots and trunks wrestler. You know the type. Had some charisma. Was usually a pretty dislikable heel, which I was proud of. But at the same time, I think as you try to reach for more, or kind of just keeping your finger on the pulse of what's going on in especially indie wrestling, because what you'll see what happens on the independents will always bubble its way up to what's on television. It'll always be a few years before you see that, but it started with you had what was happening in ECW. That's kind of what ended up becoming the Attitude Era. In even a more modern version of that would be like someone like Orange Cassidy or Danhausen. They were doing that stuff on independents for years before finally AEW comes along and takes notice and notices that that's some popular those are some popular acts. So kind of just trying to stay in step with what was getting popular and what was kind of going to be the next thing on the horizon, and then also just wanting more for myself in terms of you get a little bit. I personally get a little bit bored of just going out and wrestling and doing the same thing every night. So when kind of an opportunity was presented to do something a little bit more creative, it took me a minute to kind of get it and jump at it. But once the first time that I did, I kind of noticed that there was more confidence that came through. There was more fun to be had for the fans, especially because we're out here wrestling for the fans, not for ourselves. They're the paying customers. They're the ones who are buying the merchandise. So whenever you notice something that the fans react to and respond positively to, that's something to always lean into. So, for me, it was I kind of got forced into trying out the character by Ethan Page, because I was wrestling for his promotion Alpha One up in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and he had suggested the idea, suggested the character, and I was kind of resistant to it because I didn't really understand it. But then he actually just took my picture, my promo picture that was coming up for the next show, and he photoshopped some glasses on it, and he billed me as Dan the Dad. And he said, "Here, now you have to, because it's been announced and it's on Twitter and it's public information now that you are Dan the Dad. So now you have to." So he kind of I wouldn't say bullied me into it, but he strongly encouraged me to give it a try. And the second that I did, and kind of noticed how much more fun that everybody was having with it than just being my plain old self. It only took one time before I threw everything else away and went and bought more pairs of shorts and glasses and hats and the shoes that I found, which are hard to find. They're New Balance shoes, but I can't just wear low tops or else my ankles will disintegrate. So I have to find these like special high top New Balance shoes. But luckily those worked out great. And just as things kind of came together, as I kind of added new things to the look and and then it became more fun to come up with different things to do in the ring. Like I said, whether it's a coffee mug or any other sort of like dad tropes to throw in there, and it will all always lead to Dan the Dad getting some offense in. So it's not just silliness for the sake of being silly. It's always still a wrestling where I like to describe it as kind of like a tricky style of wrestling where it's misdirection, but it all kind of works together to create actually a good wrestling match. And I learned a lot of that from like Orange Cassidy as well. He's the master of that, of taking something silly.
Oh yeah.
And using it in a way that he actually gets to pull off something athletic or some good offense or something high impact. So I watch him a lot. I get a lot of advice from him, and was able to wrestle or work with, it was a 4-way match, but it was with me, Danhausen, Effie, Orange Cassidy. And I think that match taught me so much, just being able to mix it up with Orange a little bit in terms of how he thinks and how I can apply some of what works for him to some things that work for me, and it's been a good relationship I've had with him since then.
Well, that's definitely the connections that I was thinking of. You, Orange Cassidy, Danhausen, all can just flat out wrestle, but you can work those elements of your style into the matches too. The old Three Stooges eye poke, I've seen that a bunch of times. That's a classic move.
Yeah.
And and you get over so well with the fans. I mean, you had the opportunity to wrestle in some AEW shows. I've seen you at the AEW shows in Kansas City, and you really got about as big a reaction as anyone on the AEW Dark Tour. What was it
Yeah.
like doing some of those events, getting into the bigger arenas in America?
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's all just a good experience. Like, I remember the first time that I was sent out there. This was back in, I guess, like probably late 21, early 22. This was it wasn't Kansas City, the first one that I did. It was, they needed someone to go out there and mix it up with Powerhouse Hobbs a little bit. And I was sitting in catering. I didn't think that I'd be doing anything that day. And because the way that they kind of organized it, they don't really do the dark matches as much as they used to. But when they were just filming 11, 12 of them before every episode of Dynamite, they had this big board, and they would put on there all the matches that were going to happen. And if your name was on the board, then you knew you had something to do. But if not, then you just sort of went and hung out and just, helped out in other ways if they needed you to do anything. But so I thought I was not doing anything that day. Didn't see my name on the board. No big deal. And then I get a call and a text on my phone, and they're looking for you down here. So then I run down, and about 10 or 15 minutes notice, I'm out in front of that crowd. And I think that first time I was very intimidated and very, you're just kind of stunned by that big of an arena, that big of a crowd, that level of production that I'd never been in front of before. And so, and then all the other times that I've been able to do it, it kind of, that some of that wears off and you become a little bit more comfortable with it. Mm-hmm. So it was a great experience, if only just to, get myself out there, be seen a little bit, but then also just to be able to, if given another opportunity, having enough experience to say, okay, this is what it's like. You can kind of shake off some of that, those nerves that come with just being exposed to something that big for the first time. So that's the best thing, is being able to have gotten out there like 4 or 5 different times, and I'm ready for whenever the next time is. I think they're rolling through Kansas City next month. I mean, mm-hmm. I should be back there. If I'm not out in the ring, then I'll be back in catering, but I'll be around. We'll see what happens. But it's always nice to get invited when they come through, like St. Louis, Kansas City, Indianapolis, some of the other Midwest cities. I usually end up back there hanging out, if not just to see some good friends that I don't get to see as much since they're not doing indie shows anymore.
Sure.
Like Page and Danhausen and other people that I kind of came up with, and still good friends with.
Now, what is the current, I guess you'd say, circuit for Dan the Dad? Where can people watching this around the country see you stepping into the ring?
Yeah, I'm all over. Tend to travel pretty north and south. So St. Louis, Kansas City are my two, and Chicago as well. Probably my three biggest places that you'll see me. Up to Minneapolis, up to Canada, up in the Ontario area. I'm there pretty often. I'm actually be in Texas, in Houston, and San Antonio coming up this upcoming weekend. So trying to make it out to the coast a little bit more, but that's a little bit tough right now. But as far as the Midwest, I got it pretty much all covered. So if you see a wrestling show from Kansas City to Chicago and anywhere in between, good chance that I might be around.
And you're going to be featured in the next show coming up to Central States, A Glitch in the Matrix, coming up on Saturday, September 30th at the National Guard Armory on 18200 West 87th Street, just a little bit past the city center. Taking on the conductor, Rex Amadeus. So that's going to be a unique matchup of a couple of personalities. Have you faced off with Rex Amadeus before?
No, I don't. I don't think I have. I know he's a pretty big guy though, so I guess we'll have to see what tricks we can pull out. Uh, I don't know if he's easily fooled either. So that also comes into play sometimes if someone's not gonna play into the bag of tricks, then maybe I might just have to punch him in the face. It just kind of depends what they give you. But Rex seems like a good talent, and I'm looking forward to mixing it up with somebody new.
Well, the music is definitely going to fit into the dad theme because Rock Me Amadeus, probably a lot of people's dad's
Mhm.
favorite rock song. We're going back a long way to a one-hit wonder. So maybe you
Certainly,
guys got a shared interest in the music stylings.
yeah, I can get behind that.
How do you how do you feel just about how Central States Wrestling has been able to, I guess, really kind of rebuild? Because here's a picture from a recent show drawing really good crowds and a really enthusiastic crowd after just relaunching the promotion post COVID.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch a lot of promotions able to reset a little bit, and I think some priorities get in order, and Central States is very much one of them. That you relaunch, you get a good group, a good trusted group of a roster that you can build around, and Kansas City and St. Louis have no shortage of awesome talent. Like you've got when you've got Dak Draper, when you've got Jeremy Wyatt, when you've got everyone who the Howletts, you've got all these awesome wrestlers that are local. It makes it so much easier to build up something like Central States because I mean if you've got local wrestlers that are lousy, then it's hard to build around them. And then you got to start bringing in wrestlers from other parts of the country, which can get expensive, which can
Hmm.
get hard to do just logistically. So it's such a help when you've got um, talent you can trust to put on a good show, to promote the show, to make sure the fans have a good time, and they're coming from within you know a few hours of where you're running. So. And then also credit to Strider and all the folks who are running the place that have done. I mean, Strider's been around a long time in
Yeah,
terms of back when operating Metro Pro, which is, as things have kind of developed in Kansas City, a lot of that still kind of goes back to Metro, kind of starting off that scene years and years ago. So it's cool to see that it's how it's evolved and developed, and Kansas City kind of remaining a really great hotbed for wrestling, and they've always had great fans who have always kind of stuck with whatever the promotion was kind of starting up, they're always going to get support from those fans because they love indie wrestling. They love their local talent that they've seen over the years and that they trust that are going to put on a
sure.
great show. And yeah, there's just a lot of factors that go into creating a great show like it. But Central States has just about everything going for it.
Well, in St. Louis, Glory Pro has really done a great job, and even in Central Missouri, World League Wrestling's going. So there's a
Yeah.
lot actually working in Missouri and in just that Midwest region. It's good to see everybody kind of rising up and the tide lifting all the boats at once.
Yeah, it's a good place to be. I mean, you even see a lot of other wrestlers who maybe they're from Texas, maybe they're on the East Coast, maybe they're maybe Florida, maybe places that are kind of a little bit far out to do a lot of traveling or to get on a lot of shows and get to see a lot of different areas. But a lot of wrestlers are moving to the Midwest, whether it's Chicago, St. Louis, or Kansas City, because it's centrally located and you can hit all these different states and cities within a few hours drive is great. So it's cool kind of being in a destination area where people are coming because they want to get more experience and get in the ring more and get in front of different crowds. And the crowds have been showing up in huge amounts lately. I mean, wrestling is very it's really hot in terms of like the live event ticket. Glory Pro's doing great crowds, Central States. Revolver up in the Des Moines area, always running huge crowds that also love what they're watching and understand it, which is great for me because I'll run into crowds if they don't really, maybe if they're not expecting to see something funny or maybe not so serious, I can get cricket reactions once in a while because people are like, why is this guy acting like a goof? But when you're in front of crowds who have seen like comedy wrestling before and are prepared for it, I mean, it's like if you were to get up in front of like an Olive Garden and start doing stand-up comedy, people probably look at you funny. But if you're at a comedy club, then people are more into that. And I kind of equate that to wrestling crowds as well. Sometimes that if you got to give them what they're expecting to see. And sometimes if they're not expecting to see a certain type of wrestling or whatever, then it kind of gets nothing. So it's interesting, the different crowds that come up in different cities and states and different ways that you got to present yourself for just different people. Because they're like, if we're talking about sales, we're talking about consumers and kind of meeting them where they are, as opposed to giving people something that they're not asking for. So that's kind of the most fun I have sometimes is checking out a crowd. Might be match one. I might go peek through the curtain and see what the crowd's kind of reacting to or what they seem interested in, and that might affect what I do a couple matches later on the card. Or sometimes you are match one, and then you just got to go out and give it a try and see what the crowd's going to give you. So that's its own challenge too.
Well, it could be a little bit of a different reaction from the fans first time they see you in the ring, or maybe a Luigi Primo.
Yeah, sometimes they get it, sometimes they don't. The goal is that they get it by the end of the match, but it's always different. You got to adjust on the fly as needed.
Has there ever been a matchup between Dan the Dad and Luigi Primo?
Never one-on-one. We did that. There was a three-way match at Central States where it was me, Luigi, and Ethan Price. That was a fun one. The only other time we mixed it up was in a trios match at Dreamwave not too long ago, where he was on an opposing side, and we did a little coffee mug versus pizza dough situation as you would expect to see. So no singles match yet, but I'm sure that could be on the cards at some point.
Well, we'll go ahead and wind it down here. Just a championship round. Got a Wrestling with Sales championship belt.
All right.
So get you a title. Who would be your dream opponent that you haven't been able to face yet?
That's changed lately because I've been really enjoying, I don't know if you've seen Minoru Suzuki, his involvement with DDT lately has been amazing. They just did that Bullet Train match with him and Takagi-san, and it's interesting how much he loves all styles of wrestling. He's very much someone who understands what the crowd wants, what he's been booked to do, and who he's in there with, and what would make for the most entertaining way to mix all that up. So I honestly would probably throw Suzuki as my dream opponent because I think we would just have a lot of fun together, despite him being one of the most intimidating professional wrestlers of all time. He just understands how to have fun as well. And he's been kind of he's almost been like full time with DDT for the past month or so. And I keep seeing all these clips pop up of him just having a great time with that great roster. So that would be incredible to be able to mix it up with Minoru Suzuki. and hopefully, I'm sure he slap me around a bit, but hopefully we
Yeah.
have some fun in the process.
Well, he seems to be living his best life. I saw
Mhm.
he had a match with Maki Ito and
Yeah,
Mei Suruga as well. So
mhm.
he's definitely pushing the boundaries on the most intense wrestler
Absolutely.
with a lot of different stuff. How about where you'd like to wrestle the most?
I mean, so Japan was the dream, and now that I've been there, I definitely want to go back. But having wrestled at Cork and Hall was amazing. I'm hopefully trying to get a Europe trip going, maybe next year, to be able to do like Germany seems really cool, and with like WXW going over there. There's also different promotions in like Poland and Denmark and just like that side
Hmm.
of the continent. That would be really cool to see. I mean, obviously, the UK would be great, but I think there's just so much more to see in Europe, past just like England and Ireland. So it'd be cool to be able to set up a couple weeks there to just kind of get as many bookings as I can in as many different countries as I could. For some time to spend over there, so hopefully I can get something set up for maybe the spring or the summer coming up. Would be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be really neat. And finally, how many pairs of glasses have you gone through in the last couple of years?
Oh, I couldn't even tell you because I buy them in bulk. So I mean they break all the time. Probably 20 or 30,
Okay.
and then which is never a big deal. But because I get enough of them that it's okay if I lose a pair here and there. But yeah, they do tend to. Actually, they always get broken at AEW because the person will always grab my glasses and like step on them or break them, and I'll go whatever. But that's like the
There you
place
go.
that they've been broken the most.
Well, and just to wrap it up, where can fans find Dan the Dad merchandise and where can they follow you?
So on Twitter and Instagram at Thanks Dan the Dad, Instagram or Facebook as well at Thanks Dan the Dad, and then my shop is danthedad.bigcartel.com. So you can find links to that on all my socials. Uh, Mugs, t-shirts, hats, tons of stuff you can get to order on there, or you can find me at any show. I've always got to try to have a pretty good merch table set up anywhere I go. So if you see me at
Absolutely.
the next Central States show, I just got new orders I'll have tons of mugs, I'll have tons of t-shirts. I'm actually pretty stocked up right now. So coming up, you should be able to be taken care of. Come visit me.
Well, excellent. And everybody make a point to go say hi to your dad's favorite wrestler coming up Saturday, September 30th at Central States, A Glitch in the Matrix. Dan, thanks a lot for stepping into the ring and best of luck.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.